Baggy grey sweaters and oversized slacks were her impenetrable armour. Katrina deliberately buried her 200-pound frame under layers of cheap fleece, praying she would remain completely invisible in the cutthroat corporate world of Chicago. It worked flawlessly on her cruel co-workers and her backstabbing ex-boyfriend, but she severely underestimated Dwayne Russo. While everyone else saw a frumpy, overweight bookkeeper to mock, the most dangerous crime boss in the Midwest saw a lush, brilliant queen waiting to be violently unearthed. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the sleek, glass-paneled offices of Russo Logistics, casting a sterile glare over the 72nd floor of the downtown Chicago high-rise. Katrina Evans sat hunched over her dual monitors, her thick fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard. She was swathed in a men's 3XL navy blue cardigan that hung past her knees, paired with shapeless black slacks that dragged slightly on the carpet. Beneath the heavy, suffocating layers of wool and cotton, Katrina hid a body that society and her own trauma had taught her to hate. She weighed 215 pounds. She had a soft, prominent belly, thick, heavy thighs that rubbed together when she walked, and a remarkably full bust that she aggressively strapped down with restrictive sports bras. To the pristine size 2 administrative assistants and the gym-obsessed finance bros of the firm, Katrina was a running joke. They called her the Navy tent behind her back. No one was crueler than Liam Bradley. Liam was the senior financial director, a title he held entirely because of Katrina's grueling, uncredited labor. He was also her ex-boyfriend. 3 years ago, when Katrina was a naive junior accountant, Liam had charmed her into a quiet, secret relationship. She had cooked for him, cleaned his apartment, and done his corporate portfolios. Then, the night before a major promotion, she found him in his Mercedes-Benz with a thin, blonde receptionist. When Katrina had confronted him, her heart shattering into a million jagged pieces, Liam had looked her up and down with utter disgust. "Come on, Katrina," he had sneered, his words forever burned into her psyche. "Look at you. You're fat. You're a whale. Did you honestly think a guy like me would proudly walk down Michigan Avenue holding hands with someone who looks like a marshmallow in a tarp? Be realistic. You're good for doing my spreadsheets, and that's it." Since that day, Katrina had retreated completely into her shell. She stopped trying to find clothes that flattered her plus-size figure. She stopped wearing makeup. She became a ghost, silently doing Liam's work because he continuously threatened to have her fired if she didn't comply. He had the ear of the upper management, and she was just the fat girl in the corner. But upper management was about to experience a terrifying shake-up. Rumors had been swirling for weeks that the actual owner of the company, Dwayne Russo, was coming to Chicago to audit the branch himself. Russo Logistics was an open secret in the underworld. It was a highly lucrative, perfectly legal front for the Russo crime syndicate, a Mafia family that controlled the ports from New York to the Great Lakes. At exactly 10 o'clock on a rainy Tuesday morning, the temperature in the office seemed to drop 20 degrees. The heavy double doors of the executive suite swung open, and Dwayne Russo walked in. He was a man who sucked the oxygen out of any room he entered. Standing 6'4", dressed in a custom-tailored pitch-black Armani suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and narrow waist, Dwayne looked like a predator violently forced into civilized clothing. His hair was dark and swept back, his jawline covered in a harsh scuff, and his eyes were a pale, piercing amber that missed absolutely nothing. He was trailed by 4 massive men with bulges under their jackets. "Boardroom," Dwayne rumbled, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down Katrina's spine. "All senior staff. Now." Katrina kept her head down, desperately trying to blend into her cubicle walls. She wasn't senior staff. She was just the invisible drone. But Liam paused by her desk, slamming a thick file onto her keyboard. "I need the quarterly projections for the Southside warehouses, Shamu," Liam hissed venomously, adjusting his silk tie. "And fix the discrepancies in the offshore routing. If Russo asks questions, I need the answers fed to my tablet immediately. Do not screw this up, or you'll be on the street begging for donuts." Katrina swallowed the thick lump of humiliation in her throat, her cheeks burning red. "I fixed the offshore routing last night, Liam. The numbers you entered were triggering a federal red flag. I buried the surplus in the shell company accounts, just like you asked." "Whatever. Just make sure the dashboard is live," Liam snapped, marching toward the glass boardroom. For the next 2 hours, Katrina sat at her desk, watching the boardroom through the glass walls. Dwayne Russo sat at the head of the long oak table, radiating a lethal, terrifying stillness. Liam was standing at the projector, confidently presenting Katrina's intricate financial models. He was taking credit for her genius, smiling his smarmy, practiced smile. Suddenly, Dwayne raised a single, heavily ringed hand. The room fell dead silent. Even through the thick glass, Katrina could see the sheer panic flash across Liam's face. Dwayne leaned forward, pointing a long, tattooed finger at the projection. He was asking a question. Liam stammered. He tapped his tablet wildly, waiting for Katrina to send him the lifeline. Katrina quickly typed the explanation of the tax loophole into their secure chat, but Liam was so flustered he misread it entirely. He blurted out an answer that made the other executives wince. Dwayne didn't yell. He didn't even blink. He simply turned his head, his pale amber eyes slowly scanning the open office floor outside the boardroom. He was looking for the real brain behind the operation. He knew a hollow suit like Liam couldn't have designed a money laundering algorithm that sophisticated. And then, through the glass, Dwayne's eyes locked directly onto Katrina. Katrina froze. Her breath hitched in her chest. She tugged frantically at the collar of her oversized sweater, trying to shrink further into her ergonomic chair. She was used to people looking right through her. But Dwayne wasn't looking through her. He was looking at her. His gaze dropped from her panicked face to the massive, shapeless bulk of her clothing, and a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of his ruthless mouth. He knew. By 9 p.m., the office was deserted. The storm outside had escalated, violent sheets of rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the high-rise. The building's HVAC system had been shut off for the night, leaving the sprawling office floor stiflingly warm. Katrina was the only one left. Liam had ordered her to stay behind to recalibrate the entire third-quarter portfolio because Dwayne had demanded a full forensic review by the following morning. Katrina was exhausted. Her lower back ached, and sweat was beginning to bead on her forehead. The heavy fleece cardigan she wore was becoming an unbearable oven. Thinking she was entirely alone, Katrina finally gave in to the oppressive heat. She stood up, checked the dark, empty corridors, and slowly unbuttoned the massive navy cardigan, shrugging it off her shoulders and draping it over her chair. Underneath, she wore a simple, white button-down shirt. It was still a men's size XL, but without the heavy armor of the sweater, the sheer physics of her body could no longer be completely hidden. The thin, damp cotton clung to her thick, fleshy waist. The fabric pulled dangerously tight across her heavy, abundant breasts, the buttons straining against the pressure. Her wide, plush hips and thick thighs were clearly defined beneath the cheap slacks. She was unmistakably, heavily plus-sized, and beautifully soft. Katrina sighed, raising her plump arms to gather her frizzy brown hair into a messy bun, unintentionally arching her back and thrusting her heavy chest forward. "The algorithm you built for the Cayman accounts is flawless," a dark, velvet voice echoed from the shadows. "But the idiot presenting it doesn't know the difference between a hedge fund and a hawala." Katrina screamed, violently spinning around. She collided with the edge of her desk, her hands instinctively flying up to cover her chest. Dwayne Russo stepped out of the darkness of the hallway. He had discarded his suit jacket, wearing only a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with dense muscle and intricate dark ink. He moved with the silent, terrifying grace of an apex predator, his eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made Katrina's knees weak. "Mr. Russo," Katrina gasped, her voice trembling. She frantically reached for her giant cardigan, desperate to cover her fat body. I'm sorry. I thought everyone had gone home. I'm just finishing up Mr. Bradley's reports." Dwayne stepped closer, his large hand snapping out to snatch the cardigan before she could grab it. He tossed the heavy fleece onto a nearby filing cabinet, out of her reach. "Leave it," he commanded softly, his voice leaving absolutely no room for debate. "It's 90 degrees in here, Piccola, little one. You're sweating." Katrina's heart hammered furiously against her ribs. She crossed her thick arms over her stomach, shrinking under his intense scrutiny. "Please," she whispered, tears of profound embarrassment